Here's the way that you measure this. There's a couple of different metrics that people are using to get a sense of where we're headed. But all the things that I have read at this point suggest that you want to know what the deaths are going to be today. Look back 16 to 22 days prior. Look at the number of cases on that day and figure out what 1.4% to 1.8% is. And that is the range of deaths that you will have. So in other words, when we look at, and it's a little bit more accurate to look at the 7-day averages, although I got to tell you, things are moving so quickly now.
Right.
That
shattering records.
That you know, you may be looking at like a 3-day average to get a better sense of where we are. But if you look at the infections today that we have, and we are at 187,000 today, that means that, that was yesterday, that means that probably by the first week of December, we are going to be at close to 2,500 deaths a day. And that will top, I think, any daily death count that we had. And there is no reason to believe, there's a slight, the ever so slight, I'm looking at this graph, indication that we are not now going straight up, but like just now it's just a steep hill as opposed to just a cliff,
right,
in terms of the graph.
Well, I mean, and also all of the bragging on the right that deaths are going down, even if cases are going up, deaths are decreasing because we're improving on our technology. That's all going to be null and void as hospitals are beyond capacity and are making determinations on who they can even treat, sending people home because they literally cannot treat you unless you're at death's door.
There's two different issues here. One is that it is the case that our death rate has gone down since the first couple of weeks.
Right.
But if you look at over the last 4 or 5 months, it's actually stayed relatively steady around 1.5%. Sometimes a little bit higher, sometimes a little bit lower, but and it depends on how you measure that. But that has not actually changed as dramatically as people thought. But yes, the fact is that when we get to a higher percentage number of cases, the fact that it's holding steady at 1.5 or 1.6 or 1.7 or 1.4 or 1.8 is largely irrelevant because of the numbers. And these numbers exist, like you say, without having to introduce the concept of multiple hospitals being unable to deal with the capacity, or I should say, not having the capacity to deal with the influx of patients. We're not even considering that yet. We have not hit that yet. Came close in New York at the beginning, and we had to effectively, nationalize on a state level, statalize the hospital system. So whether you were in a private or a public hospital, the governor's office basically deemed where you were going to be sent within the state. We don't have procedures like that nationally. And we don't, it's hard for me to imagine that a governor of, let's say, South Dakota, who seems to be perfectly willing to allow this to just explode in her state, is going to do anything like that. I mean, we're going to be looking at some of these North Midwestern states, and we're going to see that very thing, where it's not just a question of what the rate of death is, but it's going to be exceeded because they run out of capacity in the hospitals. And so this is a horrific situation that we're facing.